Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 5:07 on O'Connor and Company on a busy Tuesday morning. Did you get stuck with any April Fool's jokes yesterday?
No,
one
thank
got
God.
you?
I'm kind of disappointed.
I'm
Nobody.
shocked, actually, with 3 boys.
I know. Well, yeah, 2 of them are traveling right now. So.
No, that wouldn't have stopped me when I was a teenage boy. All right, well, we've made it through, and now we can head into April without any sort of nonsense. I mean, except for the Biden administration. We'll get to that a little later. Also, at 7:05, the delightful Katie Gorka. She's got a brand new book out, Next Gen Marxism. We'll talk all about it. At 7, she is delightful, by the way, Katie Gorka.
She really is.
The one thing everyone says about Katie Gorka after meeting her is, really?
No,
she
stop.
married Seb? Really?
No. You're
How
so
did
mean.
How did Seb get a woman like this?
I know you're friends, so we'll let that slide.
Sure. Listen, people say that about Meredith all the time. That's right. Mrs. Sebastian Gorka will join us with her new book. 7:35. Cheryl Riley is running against Jamie Raskin in Maryland. Cheryl Riley. And then at 8:05, oh, my God, we have 3 dynamic, incredible, powerful women today, plus you, Julie Gunlock.
Oh, wow.
And, of course,
Yes.
Heather Hunter, our executive. I'm just going to sit back and keep my mansplaining to myself. At 8:05, Xi Van Fleet, survivor of communist China, now living in Northern Virginia. She is a champion for freedom.
Yes.
And a
thorn. A thorn in the side of...
Thorn in the side of the Marxist left. And she's also a bit of a canary in a coal mine here because she says, listen, this happened in the country I left.
Yeah.
We saw it all happen.
It's going to get worse.
Specifically to the Cultural Revolution. You know, they have a brand new film on that. And listen, Netflix produces 98% garbage.
Right.
But they have a historical drama that they put out about the Cultural Revolution, focusing on the just absolute utter destruction of the Cultural Revolution in the early 60s.
Well, and what's
in
so
Mao's
sad
China.
is...
And I saw Xi Van Fleet commenting on that.
Yeah, and I'm glad she's coming on. And what's so sad is that, I mean, you can crack open a history book and learn about this.
Mm-hmm.
But sadly, too many people need things like Netflix movies to tell them the history. That's why it's troubling when Netflix slants the history or is outright lies about the history.
Right.
This is actually quite accurate about what happened in China. So it's important.
Well, Xi Van Fleet, she's got a book of her own. Maybe they'll turn this into a movie too, but it's called Mao's America, A Survivor's Warning. So we will talk to her at 8:05. So how about that? Katie Gorka, Cheryl Riley running for Congress, and Xi Van Fleet. Can I just, honestly, take the wheel.
Take the day off, Larry.
Go, Julie. You just go. What do you want to talk about this morning? Let's just start with whatever's on your mind.
Oh, gosh. Who knows? There's so much.
All right, then let's give you an update on the Trump legal issues.
That's a good place to start.
You had your window.
Look,
you could have pivoted. You're like, well,
I do what Heather tells me.
Donald Trump posted his $175 million bond yesterday. This, of course, is to avert any kind of seizure of his assets. This way he can move forward for
Stealing
his
of
appeal.
his assets.
And this is just to move forward for an appeal.
Mm-hmm.
This is like, it's like, okay, we'll let you appeal this judgment where the judge was the judge, jury, and financial
And
executioner.
a clown.
Basically, he had everything in his hands. There was no jury, there was no anything. It was all this guy. And now you could. Well, I'd like to appeal that. Okay, that'll cost you $175 million. No problem. Don't worry, we'll hold on to it for you. We'll give it back to you.
Yeah.
Suddenly, New York has a budget surplus.
Yeah, exactly.
So Donald Trump posted his $175 million bond. Now, if he wins, he won't have to pay the state anything, and he'll get all the money back. But I don't think he gets interest on it. Which is ridiculous. I'm not sure. How do bonds work? I don't know. Never had to post bond before, believe it or not. I know that's shocking.
Can you imagine if I answered?
Yes.
Well, when I had to post my bond.
Well, I have seen some of those Girls Gone Wild videos from the late 80s.
Up.
I knew you looked familiar.
Anyway.
The company that underwrote the bond is Knight Specialty Insurance, part of the Knight Insurance Group. Chairman of the company, Don Hankey, told the Associated Press that both cash and bonds were used as collateral for. Why is this even news? Why? And now they're going after the company who posted the bond. They're probably going to try to cancel them.
Yeah.
These are the people that posted Trump's bond.
Yeah.
They should be put out of
These
business.
Are the fascists.
Yeah. Why are you working with
in
fascists?
league with Trump?
Stupid. That's why all the questions of Trump after the bond got reduced to $175 million. reduced to $175
from a half
million.
$1 billion.
And all the questions were, when are you going to post the bond? How much is it going to be cash? How much is going to be assets? How much is going to... And at one point, Trump was like, frankly, it's none of your business.
Yeah.
It's like, here, I'll answer your question. When I post the bond, everyone will know that I posted the bond. And until I post the bond, I'm not posting the bond. It's like, why is that news? Why is any of this news? But
and Hanke, the insurance company,
Mr. Hanke,
who is, I guess, the head of it, said he's never met or spoken with Trump. So this guy is like, hey, we help anyone out who needs a bond. We don't discriminate.
Yeah. Well, which is kind of how things are supposed to happen in this country.
Right, exactly. If you remember how things used to work.
I know it's a quaint notion. Meanwhile, we told you about the holding company that ended up purchasing or merging with Truth Social and then going public.
Yep.
It's trading under the ticker symbol DJT. So if you want to,
I wonder what that stands for.
Want to get in on some Trump investments, you could now. The day that this went public last week, it shot up from like $40 a share, $35 a share. Well, let me give you accurate numbers. So it shot up from about $48 a share up to $72 a share, so in one day when the whole thing went public. And so, like, instantaneously, Trump on paper makes like $5 billion, right? Wow. Yesterday, it had a bit of a downturn, and it's back down into the $49, $50 a share range, which is not uncommon, by the way. There's all this excitement. People buy the stock, and then guess what people do within 48 hours of buying a hot stock? Oftentimes, they sell it. So it closed basically back where it opened before the merger, and people were doing all of these victory laps online and on X social media websites saying, oh, look at Trump's stock is failing. The stock is crashing. Now it's like, you're such
go take a walk.
Ignorant morons who know nothing about investment, know nothing about. By the way, Trump he can't cash in anything. I think it's a 6-month window until he can get rid of some of the warrants that he's holding and some of the holdings. But it's like, they have absolutely no understanding of finance and wealth.
Matter. It doesn't matter. It is trying to promote this sort of idea that he's failing or that he's struggling or that he's losing money or he's not. Look, I mean, they took him to court for what they say he supposedly overinflated his worth. This is just the same thing.
Oh, you mean the Jon Stewart? We're calling that a Jon Stewart. He did a Jon Stewart.
Okay.
Yeah. That's wrong. Yeah. Well, they are. They're obsessed with him.
They are.
And I think it delights him, actually. And I'm looking forward to Morning Joe today, where they'll do a 10-hour expose on the failing stock situation. All right. Are we good? Can we turn the page now on
we're done.
On the Trump news? He's posted his bond. He's moving forward. And then we'll see what happens with all the trials. In the meantime, he's going to be the nominee for the Republican Party, and there's going to be a presidential election. And that's kind of the more important news. It's 5:15, WMAL, traffic and weather every 10 minutes. First on the fives, Steve Hirschhorn's in the Hadid. Oh, Jamie's back. Oh. Well, you know what? Maybe we don't want Jamie back. Maybe we were starting to get used to Steve. Jamie, it's not like you can just leave. What, she was gone since
I know
2006. Good Lord. Welcome back, Jamie.
Steve, get back in here.
What's going on
Steve,
there?
come into...
Did he at least clean up the Hadid Carpet Cleaning Traffic Center?
Did he vacuum?
I'm going to have Steve come in here. Oh, good morning, you guys. Well, we are waking up to rain and...
WMAL's Free Speech Forum is back. Sunday, June 2nd at the Birchmere. Details online now at WMAL.com/Free Speech Forum.
Recently, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. running as an independent for the presidency this year. Recently, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., speaking to CNN's Aaron Burnett, said that Joe Biden was a bigger threat to democracy than Donald Trump. Now, normally that would be a headline. That would be news.
Yes.
That would be something that you would want to know about that's actually saying something. Here's a guy who was a Democrat until Biden and that party drummed him out because he dared to challenge the sitting incumbent. And so he's running as an independent, and he said that actually, everyone's saying Trump's a threat to democracy. No, actually, Biden is a bigger threat to democracy, right?
Yeah.
Here's the headline in your Washington Post. You ready? RFK Jr. rebuked for calling Biden bigger threat to democracy than Trump.
Well, let me tell you.
Isn't this headline, RFK Jr. calls Biden bigger threat to democracy than Trump? No. The headline is RFK Jr. has been properly rebuked saying Biden.
There is a term in that in media. It's called bearing the lead. Okay. And, but look, RFK, talk about if this guy has cause. I mean, he is a significant threat and nominee. I mean, he's polling pretty well, and the Biden administration has refused to give him any kind of security. He is a Kennedy. There's sort of a history there, and so talk about a threat to democracy.
Right.
I mean, Biden's trying to put Trump in jail and trying to kill this guy off.
Well, and working with social media companies to silence any dissenting
voices. I mean, I haven't even gotten to that, but
listen to how the Washington. Honestly, I frankly,
I know.
Personally, I prefer making fun of how the Washington Post reports it than what Kennedy actually said. Here's the Washington Post write-up. Lead paragraph. Independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. repeatedly advanced an argument Monday. Repeatedly advanced.
I wonder how much fighting there was about argument versus conspiracy.
Right. That President Biden poses a greater threat to democracy than Donald Trump. A comment that drew swift rebukes from several historians and experts.
Experts. There you go.
Oh, the
expert class.
All right. Listen to how they kill him on paragraph 2. Kennedy, speaking to CNN's Aaron Burnett on Monday night, criticized the Biden administration's push for social media companies to monitor their platforms for medical misinformation. Kennedy was temporarily banned by Instagram for spreading misinformation online about vaccines. Kennedy claimed Biden was censoring me and is weaponizing federal agencies. So right there in the second paragraph,
there you go.
They call him a, spreader of misinformation about.
Yep.
Isn't the Washington Post and CNN more guilty of spreading vaccine misinformation than anything Robert F. Kennedy? And again, I'm no fan of Kennedy, and I don't like some of the things he said about vaccines and stuff. But
the funny thing is that when Kennedy, in previous years was sort of spreading anti-vaccine information about like measles, mumps, and rubella, right, and all of that, which was one that he took on quite. And he did spread a lot of misinformation about those vaccines. But as usual, the mainstream media makes no distinction between the regular scheduled vaccine and COVID. I wrote 2 articles in the Wall Street Journals pushing parents to get their kids vaccinated. This was all before COVID. I'm talking about the regular vaccine schedule. And then COVID came out. This was it's a totally different animal. It's a totally different argument. And they conflate the two.
That's really good with all the facts and data. Can I get back to the Washington Post? And the outrageous way they're reporting this story.
You're much more entertaining. I'm sorry.
Paragraph 3.
It's
not. That's not the point. It's good that you're giving us facts.
Thank you. Okay.
I'd rather just, dump on the Post.
Be catty. Okay, got it.
Paragraph 3. He added that Trump, who has alarmed some experts with rhetoric and stances that have compared to authoritarian leaders, plotted a more extreme second term, and inspired his supporters to fight the results of an election he continues to falsely claim was stolen, is not a significant a threat to democracy.
Well, that is quite the graph.
So the sentence is, if you take a little parenthetical out there, that they actually utilize, what is a hyphen? But what do you call when you use a hyphen in the middle of the sentence like that?
I know, there's a word
for
it.
So the sentence really is, he added that Trump is not as significant a threat to democracy.
But had to add in.
An editor came back in and said, hey, that sentence
let's remind them that that's not true.
So the finished sentence is, he added that Trump, who has alarmed some experts with rhetoric and stances that have compared to authoritarian leaders, plotted a more extreme second term, and inspired his supporters to fight the results of an election he continues to falsely claim was stolen, is not as significant a threat to democracy. So, this whole story is about the Washington Post. That's the third paragraph.
Yes. Literally, the part that they were reporting, which he added so RFK added that Trump is not a significant threat to democracy, is like 10 words.
Yeah.
The graph that they put it in, post hyphens, is like 50 words. It's just
and then, by the way, here's what Kennedy, because it sounds like Kennedy's wearing a MAGA hat and storming the Capitol on January 6th. Here's what Kennedy said. I'm quoting him now. Him trying to overthrow the election clearly is a threat to democracy. But the question was, who is worse threat to democracy? And what I would say is, I'm not going to answer that question, but I can argue that President Biden is.
Mm-hmm.
That's all he said.
That's all he said.
And it's 5:29. We've hit our 5:30 mark. Take you right into the news. And coming up next, when our news report is finished, we'll tell you what Mitch McConnell is most focused on now in his final months in the U.S. Senate. I'll give you a hint. It's not you. It's people in a far-off land. Next.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station.
Making sense of the news.
News Talk 105.9.
News now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 5:36 this Tuesday morning, the second day of April, charging through your week with energy, excitement, and perseverance because we got to keep our eye on the prize, Julie Gunlock. It's a big year. It's 2024. Let's go. Okay, that's it for me. Take it away. I got nothing else. I'm done. I'm spent. Coming up later in this very broadcast program at 7:05, Katie Gorka. Kinder, gentler Gorka.
Gorka's one of those names where you know exactly who
Yeah,
she,
it's
you know,
true.
it's like Gunlock. It's like there's only two of us in the country.
Hey, are you? Of course I am.
Of course. Yeah.
She's got a brand new book, Next Gen Marxism. Kind of a theme here because coming up at 8:05, She Van Fleet is going to join us. She's got a book about surviving Mao's Marxism. Mao's America, A Survivor's Warning. And in between there at 7:35, we'll check in with Cheryl Riley. She's running in the 8th District of Maryland against, well, our very own Marxist, Jamie Raskin. So we're fighting Marxism all morning here, at home and abroad. Enemies foreign and domestic. I'm Larry O'Connor. She's Julie Gunlock. All right, now you can take it away. What do we got?
What are we talking about?
What are you asking me for? All right, so Mitch McConnell was interviewed yesterday. Mitch McConnell, of course, the Senate Minority Leader. He's been in the Senate, I believe, since 1926.
They're all pretty old up there.
And he, of course, announced his retirement. But, of course, he's not leaving. He's going to play out his string. He decided he's going to leave and step down from his seat in November.
So he's doing a Pelosi.
After the election. But he was asked yesterday about what it's like now being kind of a lame duck, as it were. And he discussed what that is like and also, more importantly, what his top priority is at this time. At a relatively fragile moment in American history when people are feeling very off kilter with regard to our economy, certainly our finances, our positions abroad, in terms of our national security, our border that is being inundated and threatened on a daily basis, crime in our streets, the cultural Marxism infiltrating our public schools, and our children being convinced to change their gender. All of those things that we care most about. Here's what Mitch McConnell is most worried about.
What's your mindset now when your feet hit the floor in the morning when you wake up? What do you see ahead?
Well, first, let me just say I've been served longer as leader than anybody in American history, 18 years. So look, I finally thought it was time to go in a different direction. But I'm not leaving the Senate, and I'm particularly involved in actually fighting back against the isolationist movement in my own party and some in the other as well. And the symbol of that lately is, are we going to help Ukraine or not? And I think it's extremely important that we do that. I'm not a particular fan of the Biden administration, particularly the decision to run out of Afghanistan, which is like sending Putin a green light. And but we are where we are, and the Europeans have stepped up.
Yeah, that's what his mindset is. Every single morning, we got to
so
make sure.
So if you have any sort of questions about unending funding of Ukraine, you're an isolationist.
Isolationist is the word they use. Isolationist, of course, is a word that was used for those who didn't want to get involved in World War II. Against the Nazis. Another word for them was anti-Semitic, because the only reason you wouldn't do that is because you were on Hitler's side, that sort of thing. Isolationist. Isolationist is a fascinating term to use for people who... Listen, the key giveaway here was I've been the leader in the Senate for 18 years. That means it was 2006. It was in the middle of the war on terror. Our excursion into Iraq was only 4 years old then. It was only the length of World War II at that point when he first started. So he had a lot of work to do. His entire time there has been about foreign excursions. The fact that Donald Trump took us out of all of these foreign wars sort of left him without any agenda. So thank God he's now got his priorities back. It is disturbing, though, when they say it out loud in such a blatant and obvious way that their main priority every single day is not the people of this country.
That's exactly right.
It's not
my main priority.
Number
is Ukraine.
Number one. It's just at this point, I expect politicians to at least have some deft political. I expect them all to lie. So at least throw us a bone and say, well, listen, I'm very concerned about the inflation and the standard of living in this country and people feeling unsettled about their children and crime in the streets. But we also can't take our eyes off some real international threats that are going on. Nope. No. Didn't even throw us a bone. No, didn't even pretend that he cares about us and that his priority is us.
Right. It is interesting how it sort of betrays how DC they are now. Yeah. That they McConnell has no thoughts for the American people. This is what they mean
when they say the swamp. This is what they mean.
Exactly.
This is what they mean.
They are they are addicted to losing. I mean, because again, this matters to the American public.
So there's something said about members of the United States Senate, and that is everybody in the Senate is someone who's already tried and failed to run for president, or people who just haven't done it yet. Mm-hmm. Because they all have these delusions. They all have these pretensions that they should be commander-in-chief and they should stand astride the world stage and they should be able to pull this. There's something about the Senate when people get into that chamber where they think that their job is no longer what they actually get sworn in to do, which is to defend and protect the Constitution from enemies, foreign and domestic. No, they think their job is to control the world and run the world and be the leaders of the world, because they get in the Senate and that's their main focus
their reasoning will be, I am defending the Constitution and the people of the American public, because if Russia is allowed to take over Ukraine, to take this country, then they're going to go into Poland and they're going to go, and then NATO is going to be triggered and we're going to be in a world. I mean, you understand that this is how
of course I understand it. It just always makes me laugh that that's the argument, and I get it. It's the best argument they've got.
I have some sympathies for this, that America does have a role internationally.
Oh, I agree. Of course we have a role internationally.
Going back to what you originally said, I mean, could you at least mention the conditions here in America first? Yeah. I am not unwilling to have these conversations about the world stage, but it really does betray how little they care about the American public.
But I'm really tired of the argument. Well, if we don't do this in Ukraine, they're going to go into Poland, and that's going to trigger NATO, and then we're going to have to fight the war. Here's the thing. Here's the funny thing about NATO. We created NATO, and we bought into NATO, and we've signed into NATO, and we've fully participated more than, frankly, any other NATO country in our commitment to NATO, because it is a deterrence to Russia or any other country, but really Russia. Of doing exactly that, going into Poland. So you can't have NATO spend all the money that we spend on NATO, put all of our investment into NATO, not just our financial investment, but our country's character and psychology into knowing if that line gets crossed, we're mobilized and we're going to do something to defend it. You can't have that going for you. And then at the same time say, this country's right next to NATO. It's not in NATO, but we've got to treat it like it's NATO. Otherwise, then they're going to cross into NATO. No,
I get it.
You can't have both of those
Well, the truth
is
we know that most of those NATO countries spend so little on their militaries that they can't do anything.
Exactly. And last I checked, Poland was withdrawing their tanks from defending Ukraine right now and helping Ukraine out. So, and they're the ones who are the most threat.
That's right.
So, I understand the threat of Putin, but you can't have NATO. You can't have your NATO cake and eat it too, is what I'm trying to say.
That's a nice way to tie it.
Don't have your NATO there and then say, but that means any other country that's close to NATO, we have to treat as though they're NATO, even though they're not NATO, because if they get overrun, then they're going to probably go into a NATO country. No, they're not going to go into a NATO country because NATO is NATO.
That's why we set up NATO.
That's right. Thank you. That whole whirlwind we just experienced, kind of a tornado. 545 WMAL traffic and weather. It is 5:49 now on the second day of April. Up in New York, I get sad whenever we talk about what's happened to New York, but
yeah, I do too.
New York firefighters.
This is almost just so hard to read.
Have been forced to remove a flag that has been put up since 9/11, honoring the heroes, because a politician questioned if it was a political symbol. So the flag, it's a U.S. flag. You've seen these before, where one of the stripes, one of the white stripes between red under the star field, is red for support for the fire department. Now, there's two other similar flags. I've seen one that has the blue stripe, supporting police officers, and there's one that has a green stripe that supports Border Patrol.
Yeah.
Right? So this politician in New York, this is a Democrat, I needed to say Democrat, Manhattan Councilwoman Carlina Rivera confronted firefighters at Ladder Company number 11, saying that the flag was fascist. Jeez. It's a red line American flag honoring the squad's 6 brothers who were killed on September 11th, and they've had it up at the fire station since then.
Yeah. I look for, okay, this is
so a staffer for this councilwoman went up on a bicycle. I do like the
description,
the little touch that he was on a bike. Told the firefighters he worked for Rivera and that the councilwoman's office complained to the FDNY 3 days earlier about the flag. He called it a fascist symbol and demanded to know why it was still up. And eventually they did have to. Two quick observations. It's awful, disgusting, and despicable that this firefighter, this councilwoman, would make them do this. But I gotta say, my heart is aching a little bit that the firemen did this. It's like these are not the New York firefighters that I know. They should have kept it up and said, you want to take this flag down, honey?
Yeah.
You come in here and take it down. You got to come through us first.
Make a scene.
And everyone in the neighborhood should be standing in front of that fire station as well.
Yep. You know what I look forward to, though, is Jon Stewart. Formerly of The Daily Show, who loves to go up to Congress and yell at congressmen for not caring about 9/11 victims and the firefighters who were part of the recovery, and going up and screaming at them. I look forward to him dedicating a show, whatever show he's on now.
Well, he didn't, and he won't have to now because, thankfully, a Instagram influencer posted a picture of this and told the story about it, and within hours it went viral.
He can still revisit
That's
this.
true. Oh, no, he
can
should
still
do a full monologue about it.
How leftists hate this country and hate firefighters and hate police.
The commissioner and the chief of department reversed the decision, and they have allowed the flag
how nice
to be back on the truck, which is ridiculous. This is Ladder Company 11, by the way, which is East Village, is about half a mile from the World Trade Center, maybe a mile from the World Trade Center. So
obviously they lost people. And
of course, So it has been reversed, but the fact that this woman would even do this and have his little, pajama boy on his bicycle ride up and say, "That's fascist, take it down."
Yeah.
But the firefighters should have stood their ground.
They should have, and
they should have never taken it down.
And again, I'm glad
they said, "We would love for you to take this flag down. You will also lose every fireman who works in this department."
Yes, exactly. I wish that there had been a better reaction from the firefighters. I also wish. Look, the New York Post is reporting this. That's great, but there isn't wide reporting of this. This is horrifying that this would happen in New York, and that she would call a flag dedicated to the men and women who responded that day as fascist. So, and again, just the fact that Jon Stewart is these supposed advocates of firefighters in New York City.
They always love to use police officers and firefighters as a backdrop so they can stand there. They're always standing in the background in uniform while a politician says, "We stand by our first responders." But when the chips are down, they cut and run whenever the first responders actually need their support. We saw that last week with the death of the officer in New York and the incredible emotional turnout of the men in blue in New York. And now we're seeing how they treat the firefighters. But will they learn the lesson? No. Their union chiefs will still support the Democrats who consistently put their lives in danger, call them fascists, and throw them under the bus. We need some change there, big time. 5:53.